pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We want to thank everybody for joining us today and the Board of Supervisors meeting this August 15, 2023. Do we have any changes to the tentative agenda?
I have none.
Okay, next we have to meet with department heads, elected officials. Christopher Miller, Health Department.
Good morning. We continue to be busy at Public Health. It's back to school season, and so our clinics, our immunization clinics have been very full. We've been adding extra days and continue to do so to try to accommodate all the people trying to get in for immunizations. I don't have anything else to report.
Angie Vaughn, Safety.
Good morning. I really don't have anything to report.
Rodney Bleasner, Maintenance.
Good morning. Everything's going well for the moment, so nothing to report.
What did you guys have a meeting
better
before
than
this
say
got
it.
started?
Should not have said that.
Don't jinx yourself.
Hey, you're out of order. You're out of order. And I appreciate your attitude. It's too
Now
good.
you guys know why I hide that smell.
They said I like it too much.
I
I'm getting
just heard
excited
a
over
mission
here.
over there.
I'm getting excited. All right. Ken Hyman, Mental Health Agency of Southeast Iowa.
Yeah, yesterday afternoon I attended First Resources kickoff celebration in Ottumwa of individual placement and supports program. So First Resources is starting the IPS program just like Hope Haven has the IPS program here in Burlington. And so we'll have two agencies in our region helping people with really complex needs to find jobs. And so that's an exciting thing. And the management team is beginning work on combining the management plans from the different regions into one new management plan. I know Ryan's set up 2 meetings that haven't happened yet, but we're gonna start putting a management plan together. We hope to have something by September 1st, so a draft at least to go with. It's gotta go on to the state, to HHS, and to the governing board and the advisory committees, so we're just trying to start working on that. And that's about it.
Okay. Sue, you're here for personal reasons and whatnot and whatnot. Okay, all right then. Sheriff Kevin Glendenning.
Hi, good morning. We have a few things happening. We're hosting the rescue task force training, which is basically a coordinated response between law enforcement and emergency medical services. So we have many of our deputies, Burlington PD, State Patrol, Burlington Fire, they're participating, and we had 30 open seats, so we were able to fill all those seats with additional surrounding law enforcement agencies and fire. So Burlington's graciously letting us use their training room, and we have 30 law enforcement and fire that are going through that training, and they'll do some actually on-site training at one of our local schools here tomorrow and Thursday. So it's essentially just to prepare for an incident where they have a coordinated response between those two entities, and just getting prepared for those kind of situations. We have a condemnation hearing going on today, so thank you to our commissioners who the board has appointed and given us their time. Condemnation hearing is basically an eminent domain hearing where they're going to establish fair market value for property that's being taken. And this one's for the Highway 61 project north of Minneapolis. We have 2 of our graduates from, or 2 deputies that are graduating the academy this Friday, so we'll have them back and we'll start their field training. That'll be a 16-week process after they finish the academy. So about 4 months out, we'll have those 2 out on patrol, and we're looking forward to that. Additionally, we have Kenny's Honor, which you guys are aware that he'll be starting on Monday. So we'll have all 3 of our new deputies starting all at the same time and going through our field training. So our field training officers will be quite busy with getting them all prepared. And if you have time this Saturday, the Pigs Are Precious tournament is going on, and that's our reserve unit puts on this tournament annually. It's a golf tournament.
What's that called?
The Pigs Are Precious. So it's an annual golf tournament fundraiser for the reserve unit, and it's being hosted by the Sheriff's Office Reserve Unit this Saturday. You can put a group of 4 together, come on out and golf. we're still taking some teams.
Did you say pigs are precious?
Pigs are precious.
And where's it at?
Flint Hills. That's about all I've got. Yes, sir.
You forgot the jail stats.
Oh, the jail stats. We were at 90 this morning. 9 were out of county. 3 additional juveniles, so 12 total. I think we had 3 waiting to go to prison. 2 are going tomorrow morning. 3 waiting on the residential facility, and 1 of those is going tomorrow morning. So not a huge list there, and they tend to really not let those lists go as long as what we were seeing about a year ago. So we're pretty happy with the response we're getting from both the residential facility and the prison system.
Okay. Colin Gerst, IT.
Good morning. Things are going well. Don't really have anything new to report.
Jared Lassiter, Land Use.
Morning. Pretty much keeping busy as usual. We actually have a work session on the agenda today, and last week we had our first permit associated with wind energy activity. Specifically, this is for a MET tower, the meteorological evaluation tower, for assessing wind conditions. Basically, when they're looking at a possible wind farm site in the future. So we have that in the ordinance as a use it's a temporary use, but it's meant specifically to address the visibility for like agricultural planes or in any other aircraft in the vicinity. So that was approved last week. It was the timing worked out just right there for when the ordinance was initially adopted last month. But then that went pretty smoothly, so we look forward to moving ahead with the work session on the other ordinance for solar.
Sounds good.
Jared, was them permits issued for up in northwest part of Des Moines County?
Yep, there's two separate, it's actually the same property owner, but about a couple miles, maybe 3 miles apart.
Okay. Thank you.
One's actually right near the Louisa County line.
Yeah. Thank you.
Trent Hinklevick.
Okay.
Attorney's Office.
As everybody can tell on the way here, there's a jury trial today. And then I'm here primarily for the work session. So, but yeah, we're staying busy there, it's just business as usual.
Sarah Marie, Auditor.
Good morning. So next week is ISAC, so I will need everyone to have payroll done on Friday. If you have weekend staff, please put it in first thing Monday morning to get that completed, but I have to have payroll and everything completed Monday with Sue before, because I'll leave first thing Tuesday after the meeting, because we have a meeting at 2 p.m. up there, so. But other than that, just business as usual. We have a special election coming up on the 12th of September, so we're preparing for that, but busy.
What's a special election for?
Burlington School District, they want a PPEL.
Isn't there already an election in November? Okay.
And we won't know if there's a primary yet. We'll find that out in about 15 days, so. There could possibly be 3.
All right. Fun. Brian Carter, County Road.
Good morning. Plenty of stuff going on. 99 projects moving along. Rain slowed us up. We're slowed the contractor up just a little bit over the last week. Week and a half, I guess, on and off, but they're still moving. Working mostly on the south side of the bridge right now, but there is some channel work still. They're still doing some demo on the bridge. They have kept moving, even when it was too wet to really do some other stuff. They did do some kind of little things here and there just to try to keep some stuff moving, but that's going okay. I'd say it's probably just a little behind where I would have envisioned, but it's coming along good. So the back half of any project like that's when people start to get frustrated. They get fed up with being, closed off, or having to take their detour route and stuff like that. So it can be frustrating all the way around, but it is still going, and that's a good deal. The bridge that our guys worked on 190th is open now, so that's done with, and looks good, sits in there good. I would mention that Mediapolis Road, just west of Mediapolis, is closed today. They also got held up, that's the DOT's contractor that's building those overpasses, they're pouring the bridge deck today on one of them. I mentioned this to you maybe a couple weeks ago at this point, I don't know how long it's been, but they've shuffled it back multiple times because of weather and site conditions. It was probably closed somewhere around 7 or 8 o'clock this morning. We did a press release yesterday, once we confirmed everything. And it will open up this afternoon. And then obviously there's 2 bridges, so they have another bridge deck to pour, and I would anticipate maybe next week for that one, but they do wanna get them both done here shortly, so. I'm trying to push them to get it done before school starts up next week, just so that road's open, but we'll see what comes out of that. Otherwise, plenty of stuff going on, but if you guys ever have anything, I will say there are quite a few rumblings about wind up in the north end of the county. There's definitely letters being received, door knocking going on by companies, a lot of activity on the wind side of things up there. We'll see what comes out of all of it. A lot of it's hearsay at the moment, but I do know it's happening. I've seen the letters and talked to the folks where they had their doors knocked on, so.
Okay. That brings us to discussion and vote. First, we have A. Oh, thanks, Thomas.
You're welcome.
Do we have any correspondence, gentlemen?
I have none.
Okay. Now, that brings us to discussion and vote. First, we have accounts payable claims. We have $740,328.75 in checks, $161,660.45 in wire transfer payments for the grand total of $901,989.20. Could I get a motion to approve accounts payable?
Move to approve.
Second. Moved and second. Sarah Marie?
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes.
Shane McCampbell?
Yes. Next, we have 5B, which is approval of a supplemental agreement, number 1, for final design for Des Moines County Bridge FR 14, FHWA number 143-200, and the project number BHOS-CO2994-5N-29. Says a lot, but Brian's gonna break it down.
So these B and C are both basically the same thing. They're a continuation of a preliminary design contract we have with our consulting firm that does our bridge design. Both projects, the first one, FR 14, is on North Gear Avenue. The second, which would be C, is Danville Road. We've talked about these at length. They're both pull the current deck off, do whatever maintenance needs to be done with the substructure, I guess I'll call it, and then put a brand new deck on. That's the kind of project they are. We're midstream. I wouldn't advise stopping, so I would advise approving this. And these projects probably, I kind of hope they'd be next year projects as far as like next spring or next summer. Probably realistically at this point, we may drag our feet just because of the timing of letting and everything, and we may look at them for 25. So I'm still figuring out schedule, but until we have plans, it really doesn't matter. We're working on some environmental stuff also at this point. So I would recommend approval of both B and C.
Any questions or concerns for Brian?
Where did you say the second one is located?
So the first one on here, B, is North Gear, and the second one is the bridge on, the Flint Creek Bridge on Danville Road. The only bridge, I guess, on Danville Road, for that matter.
Satisfied, Robert?
Yep, thank you.
Motion to approve the first bridge, 5N-29.
Second.
Moved in second. Sarah Marie?
Tom Broker?
Yes.
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
The reason we put all the stuff that makes no sense to anybody is sometimes we have to go back after the fact and pull minutes to show, if we get audited, which these both have federal funds in them now, that we're into some new funding worlds that we haven't been in for a while, and you get audited after the fact, sometimes they'll go to the depth of making you prove that you've done certain steps along the way. So we have all this in there for identification, more for us in the future than anything here. Most of this is DOT project number or federal highway number for the bridge or that kind of stuff, which means nothing to anybody. It's just for us, for being able to prove what we've done. So that's why all of the other stuff's with it.
Thank you. Which brings us to C, which is approval of supplemental agreement number 1 for final design for Des Moines County Bridge, PG, which is the Danville Road. I'm not gonna read all the extra, well, I'll go ahead and do it. 27 FHWA, number 143-945, it's the project BOHC 02993-63-29. Brian, do you wanna say anything to that?
I can certainly add on if you wish, but I covered this one also.
I just wanted to make sure everybody was satisfied. Bob, you satisfied? Gentlemen?
Motion to approve Bridge 63-29. Second.
Moved in second. Sarah Marie?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell.
Yes. Thank you.
I guess I will mention these are being paid out of the farm to market account.
Don't spend it all in one place.
We can't afford to spend it all in one place.
Okay. Next we have D, a request for tax abatement for parcel number 02-25-303-014. Dear Board of Supervisors, I'm writing to request release of the dwelling property taxes according to Iowa State Code 445.62 in association with the following property: 124 Maple Drive, Mediapolis, Iowa, 52637, parcel number 02-25-303-114. I purchased the land on June 8th, 2023. The home on the property was destroyed by a tornado on March 31st, 2023. The home was no longer standing on the property when I purchased the land. I'm requesting the dwelling assessed property tax value of $202,000 for tax year 2023 to be abated. Thank you for your time and consideration. Thank you, Sarah Doty. And, oh, go ahead, Tom.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that that is through the tax abatement or refund in case of loss, and that is 445.62. And though Sarah Marie works here, she still qualifies for everything that everybody else gets.
I was gonna say, and it is the auditor, so I thought we'd do just a little extra explanation. The taxes on that piece of property taxes are paid a year in arrears, a year behind. So the taxes for the first quarter of 2023 were paid March of 2023. For the full amount, the taxes will be paid in the full amount for the next year for the second quarter of, for the second half of 2023, which will be due next March, or in September of this year, March of next year, and 44562 abatement or refund in case of loss. The Board of Supervisors has the authority to abate or refund in whole or in part the taxes of any person whose buildings, crops, stock, or other property has been destroyed by fire, tornado, or other unavoidable casualty, if that property has not been sold for taxes, or if the taxes have not been delinquent for 30 days at the time of the destruction. Sarah bought it on June 8th. The building was destroyed on March 31st, so it was gone. And we are just abating the taxes on the house, which isn't there. She will still be, and again, this year, for the next two tax periods coming up, those taxes will be paid in full. But taxes for a year from now for the 24-25 budget year will be paid only on the land. And I took the time to speak with the county attorney's office, and thank you, Trent, and the assessor's office. But just so everything's upfront. So with that said, I would make a motion to approve the request for tax abatement.
Second.
Moved in second. Sarah Marie, let's vote.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes.
Shane Campbell.
Yes. And I said yes, not because I like you, just because I have to, because it's legal.
Thank you.
Yes.
A question for Mr. Broker. Does that mean that anybody whose house is destroyed by a tornado in Des Moines County has to do what Ms. Doty just did in order to get a tax abatement? Is the county still gonna charge some taxes?
Or the,
Do you want me to answer that?
yeah, go ahead and answer that. It depends on whether you've been covered by insurance or not, but go ahead and you answer it, that's.
So the way that shakes out is, it's already assessed, right? So it'll eventually come off the tax, it'll eventually get caught up, but there'll be a leg. So this legislation allows for somebody to come in and say, hey, the house isn't here anymore, I'm still getting paid, I'm still having to pay taxes on it. And so then it kind of corrects that leg. They can go through and go to the auditor's office, and the auditor doesn't have the legal authority to say, oh, yep, it's there, take it off, after it's already been assessed. So after June, after that closes, that door is closed. So this is just a kind of a stopgap, right? So if somebody goes in, because I think you did go to the auditor, and that's what Matt told you is, it's too late, the door's closed, the auditor, or I'm sorry, the assessor at that point can't do anything about it.
The
because their
appeals
window's
period
closed.
ends, you have to appeal it by the end of May or the end of April, whatever it is, because after that you can't appeal it. This, she bought it after so this just corrects the assessment for the following year.
So you're right, the best course of action is to go to the assessors, but there's a period of time where you're gonna have, and essentially we're looking at basically 1 year, where it's gonna be assessed, yet not there. I mean, there's not a house there, right?
So,
So the answer is, it kind of depends. I mean, ideally go to the assessor, but he might direct them back down here. It's just a timing thing.
It's only allowed for the amount which is not covered by insurance.
okay, and for the lay people that I'm trying to address, what you're saying is, if your house is damaged by the elements, you need to go see the assessor right away.
Well, not damaged. I mean, this is like total loss.
Destroyed, okay.
Destroyed, yes, destroyed.
This
yes.
wasn't my home, it was the lot next to my home, and I bought the lot. And the house that was on it was completely destroyed. So when I bought the lot, the house was no longer on it. They had taken the house completely down.
Okay. But is that correct? You know, if we have a tornado next week and my house gets taken away like Dorothy and Wizard of Oz, I need to go see the assessor right away.
Well, and it would be the first one I see, but fairly quickly.
Call your insurance agent.
I would definitely talk to insurance.
Yeah.
Okay, like Dorothy, all right, we're rolling, kids.
It won't come off the assessment right at this time, because like I said, the property taxes are paid a year
Right.
later, okay.
You good?
That's why you're up there.
All right. Okay. Next we have E, which is a Class A liquor license for Fort Catering for August 19th. Sheriff?
No issues with Fort Cater.
Where is this at?
It is 18876 111th Avenue in Sperry.
I think it's Myers.
And that is Fork, F-O-R-K, Catering. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Move to a second. Sarah Marie?
Jim Carrey,
Yeah.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell.
Yes. Next, we have 5F, resignation of Civil Service Commission Secretary. August 15, 2023, Des Moines County Board of Supervisors. I've served on the Des Moines County Civil Service Commission for the last 2 years. Due to the change in my position in the auditor's office, my time has come for another person to experience the responsibilities of the Des Moines County Civil Service Commission. It has been an honor to serve on the commission and meet and interview the great applicants for the position of Des Moines County Deputy Sheriff. The quality of our Southeast Iowa law enforcement is second to none. I'd like to extend a thank you to the Sheriff's Department, the Board of Supervisors, and the other Civil Service Commission members for all your efforts in this organization. Thank you. Sarah Doty. Do I get a motion to approve?
Motion to accept the resignation.
Second.
Moved in second. Sarah Marie?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carey,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell.
Yes.
And I would add a big thank you to Sarah as well. It's not an easy task to keep everything organized and keep moving forward with the commission and the application process, because it's a difficult one. We have a lot of steps we have to take, so a big thank you to all of her help, and we
Thank
greatly
you.
appreciate it.
Okay, which brings us to an appointment for the Civil Service Commission Secretary. This letter is to inform you that Susan Pulling has been requested to act as Secretary for the Des Moines County Civil Service Commission. If approved, her term will expire on 8/15/2029. Please approve the appointment of Susan Pulling as Personal Director, acting as Secretary for the Des Moines County Civil Service Commission. Thank you, Des Moines County Civil Service Commission. Judy Breck, Joe
DeJesus.
Huh?
DeJesus.
DeJesus? He's missing something on there. It just says DeHoos, but anyways, and Jonah Greer. So, we appreciate you. Can I get a motion to approve? I think we do.
So moved.
Second. Moved in second, now we do. Sarah Marie, let's vote.
Jim Carey,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes.
Shane McCampbell.
Yes, and thank you.
I want you to realize she's not the quiet person you think she is.
She's not. Not even close.
I'm certain that big personality is gonna. We look forward to her service as well, and we greatly appreciate her willingness to help us out. I think.
Yeah. As long as I get to taste somebody.
Yeah.
That's all good.
Already rolling. She's already rolling. Now it brings us to 5H, which is the resignation of the Compensation Board member. It has been my privilege to be a member of the Des Moines County Compensation Board for many years. I've enjoyed working with the Compensation Board members and the Board of Supervisors. However, it's time for me to retire from the board so supervisors can appoint a younger member to the board before the annual meeting in December. We have had great supervisors in Des Moines County, so I'm sure they will be able to replace me before the December meeting. Thanks for your help, Dan Cahill.
Tom, have you had a chance to talk to him?
I was gonna say, we will really miss Dan's line BS when he's in here talking to us. Always one of the highlights of the year. And I actually used my very best line of BS to talk him into staying on this year. I didn't think so. No, I haven't talked to him, but we haven't appointed anybody yet, so. I might work up to it and reach out to him with another phone call, but we'll see.
I know this is the third or fourth time he's done this. And Tom's got a golden tongue, so.
Well, we're gonna approve this, but not really, but anyway. So I gotta get a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second, not happily. Sarah Marie, let's just go through the motions before Tom gives him a phone call.
Tom Broker.
Yes.
Jim Carey.
Yes.
Shane McCampbell.
Yes. Yeah, I'll never forget the day that he stopped me in Hy-Vee and said, "Hey, come here. You ever thought about running for county supervisor?" Grabbed me in a headlock in the canned good aisle. Bless his heart. All right. Now we have some personnel actions. First one is for the county attorney's office. It is for Nathaniel Bennett. He is a legal intern at the county attorney's office. He's a part-time legal intern, and this is his resignation as the course is complete, effective 7/18/2023. I get a motion to
So
approve.
moved.
Second.
Moved in second, Sarah Marie.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell.
Yes. And we appreciate the time.
You did good, we were able to give him a jury while he was here, so.
Was that right?
Yeah.
All right, you got some action in, good stuff. The next,
Just a driving thing, you know.
the next one are for the correctional center, and we have three. We'll do all three of them at the same time. The first one is for Jalen Lacey. He's a correctional officer, and this is for discharge. Effective date 8/8/23. The second one is Kenyatta Rooks. She's a correctional officer. It's her anniversary. Her previous rate was $44,915.05. Our new rate of pay is $45,908.66, effective August 9th, 2023. And then the third is for Joe Dolph, who's a sergeant at the Correctional Center. And it's his 12-month step increase. His previous rate of pay at $52,039.37. His new rate is at $57,437.08, effective August 12th, 2023. Can I get a motion to approve all three?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved in second, Sarah Marie.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell.
Yes. And the last one is for the treasurer's office. It's for Jillian Allen. She's a clerk 2 in the motor vehicles department. It's her 6-month step increase, and her rate of pay has gone from $28,392.63 to $34,018.31, effective 8/14/23. I get a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Sarah Marie.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell.
Yes. Next, we have reports, which is a Veterans Affairs Monthly Report for the month of July 2023. These will be on file in the auditor's office, and you can look at those at your leisure. Then we come to 5K, which are minutes for regular meeting on August 8th, 2023. Can I get a motion to approve minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second, Sarah Marie.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell.
Yes. Jim's not here, you can talk right now. I got you, Jim, don't worry about it. All right, now it brings us to other business.
I have none.
I have.
Number 7, future agenda items.
I think the only thing we might have coming up, Angie, you got yours?
Yeah, it wouldn't be next week, so I still gotta touch base again with Lisa. Her schedule's been a little,
I have you down for the 29th, but if that doesn't work, let me know.
that's the week after
The week
next,
after
right?
next.
I will touch base with her and make sure she's good on that. I think she is, but
Okay.
let's,
Okay, committee reports.
I attended a road grader Burlington meeting this morning, and they had some gentleman there from the Iowa Army ammunition plant or from the federal government. They said they're 60% done with the design work on the first project, and they think site work will probably begin toward the end of this year, first of last year. And it will probably be March before they get an influx of people. And their estimate there was 1.7 billion, but I don't know. I would count on that to rise if the federal government's doing that. I attended the Mental Health Agency, the Southeast Iowa Governing Board meeting, and we approved the final 3 director nominees from the judiciary, law enforcement, and a family representative, and attended the crisis intervention training meeting here in Burlington, and discussed Elevate's first week of mobile crisis service. So they had 2 interactions with the Burlington Police Department that the Burlington Police Department was pretty satisfied with. One dispatch got called back. Did you have any interaction with them, Kevin?
No, I was out at dispatch when they did the first call, and Kurt was dispatching at the time, and he said, hey, we just got our first crisis intervention, and I followed up with him afterwards, and he said everything really went well. The process, the calls, he didn't feel like he was on the phone too long or trying to coordinate all that. He felt like it went pretty smoothly.
Yeah, what I understand is, I don't remember which one was first. There was one, they were called to a location. The police were called. There was an individual there that needed help. So they had people there within 15 minutes. And they asked, if they could take that person to the emergency room. The police took it, and then they didn't have to stick around. The mobile crisis people took care of it. And similar when they got a call for somebody, and they wasn't somebody they were concerned about. So I believe the mobile crisis team themselves took that individual to Iowa City.
Yeah.
So I think those 2 have worked out really well. So like Kevin's mentioned, we have high hopes for this service.
I think the group behind it's quite motivated. I mean, finding somebody that's in this because of their passion to help people as opposed to financial gain, that's the goal. And I really feel like this group is off to a really good start, and their intentions are great to help the community. So hopefully that's the track we stay on.
One of the founding members of that group, I met him years ago. He's been involved in this for years, highly respected. So yeah, I think you're right. And that's all I've got.
I had a workforce meeting, they just elected the officers, and then I had a youth meeting yesterday that I was the only one there. So apparently, I really didn't have one. So that's all I've got. Jim?
I had a regional rural services, and everything's going pretty good there. They're starting to advertise their pump truck. It's been a success for them. They do their own pumping now, and they've had other people calling, wanting to do it, so it's been a good thing to help out. So that's all I had.
Now at this time, we're going to set aside 2 minutes for public input. We'd love to hear from you. If you would like to call, you could call in at 319-753-8203 extension 4. Again, that number is 319-753-8203 extension 4. You can call us now. We'd love to hear from you. Or you can always email us at board@dmcounty.com. Again, that is board@dmcounty.com. Many of you citizens take advantage of that, and we always look forward to hearing from you. We'll give you 2 minutes. Jim, you'll start the clock. Thomas, you have anything to say? How was your coffee this morning?
The part that I didn't spill is pretty good. I tell you what, we've got Chris snuck in here. He might want to give us an update on it.
Yeah, sorry for getting you late. I was just in a Convention and Visitors Bureau meeting, and I heard Tom mention the thing about the ordinance plan. we had a long discussion about what that's gonna do for hotel rooms, the demand for campsites that's gonna bring. So just a lot of logistics with that. But Conservation Department wise, we had a great weekend. We celebrated the retirement of Pat Rogie, the Rock and Roll Ranger. Along with that, we had the summer celebration event, had a bunch of people out Starscape, creek stomping and exploring the trails and just doing fun stuff, kind of closing out the summer with a fun day in the park. So it's kind of a end of summer thing that we've been doing. So that's been good, and now just trying to settle into the new life without the ball of energy that Pat Rogie was at our department, and just moving forward with being short-staffed and all that. But yeah, summer's been good so far. This nice break in the weather's kind of nice. I'd expect that'll probably drive out some campers. Yeah.
You may have to hire two to replace one of Pat.
At least.
And just reminded me, I was at that Flint Hills indoor shooting range.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago. So Kristen asked me, she said people using that bike trail, she said for parking, partly in the road or part along there.
Sure,
And she
yeah.
said, have you ever thought about graveling that? I said, no, I haven't. But I said, I would talk to somebody, so I'm talking to somebody, so I don't know whether, she said they'd mentioned it, that whoever they talked to at Conservation didn't realize people were parking there, so
Are they talking about where the concrete trail comes and meets?
I'm assuming it's where that bike, I don't know for sure, I'm assuming that's where that bike track, that bike path meets Mill Dam Road.
Yeah, so that's the termination point of the city's portion. And throughout the whole course of the Flint River Trail, they did a really good job of getting the trail corridor set up and a terrible job of getting trailheads established. And so like right there, being that the trail doesn't continue down Mill Dam Road and across our property, like it's supposed to, that ends up being a terminus for the trail.
Oh,
And
so the trail doesn't go down Mill Dam Road, that's the,
No, because I mean, you go down Mill Dam Road to our Leopold area, but that's
but that's the terminal point right now until some land is acquired.
yeah. Well, we've got the land, we just till the trail's built.
Okay. But you don't have all of it.
Right, because we can't get Leopold Recreation Area connected to Stars Cave, and so I hesitate building a trail across that Leopold Recreation Area until I know how I'm coming out of there and then connecting to Stars Cave. And there's land in between there that I haven't been able to get access across. So we're kind of in the plan, I don't know, D, F, or Z somewhere now, trying to figure out how to bring that trail out around to get it connected to Stars Cave.
I will pass that along, and if you hear anything, then that's probably what you, if you hadn't heard anything about it, they just mentioned it to me.
Yeah, I have
couple
heard
weeks
that.
ago. Okay.
Yeah, numerous times. It's kind of one of those deals that there's not really a way to put a parking area there, and hopefully it'll be a moot point if we get that corridor connected on through.
Okay. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Tom, were they able to provide an estimate of numbers that they would expect in March?
Well, not in March, but what they had was, they think the workforce will be, they said 1,500 to 2,000 or more. I think they have 2,500 or more down in Weaver. I was on one in San Antonio a number of years ago, and I think they had over 2,500 there. So that would be workforce at peak. So it sounds like the peak might be there for a while.
I did also hear, so this meeting I was just in, so the CEO there, the partnership talked to the lieutenant colonel, whoever it is, kind of in charge of that. So all the plan is that we'll all be union labor, and all those workers will be vetted, background checked. So in order to get on the installation, you gotta be background checked. I find it hard to believe that they're gonna come across
That's a lot of vetting.
workers in this area that will be able to pass background checks, but I said that is the plan, that these will all be vetted workers in order to get on the installation. So, I guess we'll see, but that's their plan,
Okay, thank you.
which is the first I heard of that.
Well, I would assume they'd be union because there'll be
Yeah.
Davis Bacon.
Yes. So
How long
it
will the
is-
project last?
They didn't really say, well, at least not in the.
I can't even tell you when it's gonna start.
It's a big project, so that's just not gonna be equipment.
Well, I'm wondering if they're not saying they're gonna vet them, because Weaver, when it started off, they had good workers, and then it kinda
Kinda?
Well, I'm trying to be nice.
We're like Trent, but this is a federal project and they'll have different rules.
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm thinking, that may be what he's pushing on towards, is
You
they're gonna.
can't get inside the plan.
5 years.
It's gonna be a lot easier on our law enforcement. With these people coming in here, it's gonna be a lot easier on law enforcement. Because they are going to have to be checked before they do go through their gates.
Yeah.
If I get any updates, Kevin, I will let you know.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah, it's probably gonna affect you the most, right?
Yeah, I mean, when we had the influx of workers, when the fertilizer plant was being built, it was a big strain on local resources. I mean, it brought a lot of positive economic change, but for us, you know, our jail population went up, and really there was, unfortunately, things were established where we started seeing the large amounts of narcotics that we hadn't seen before. There's connections made during that time to the south border, and we started seeing quantities that we've never experienced. We've since got a better handle on that, and things are going really well, but those are things just, you know, we learned through the process, and we'll prepare for this time.
I think they planned a meeting for October.
Yeah.
There'll be some more information forthcoming.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and they're vetting, so vetting people don't get in any trouble. So anyways, and it's also, Jim, when's your birthday? What day is your birthday?
I can't remember.
Well, remember it, Jim.
Friday?
Friday is Jim's birthday, he's gonna be 42, so we've got that going for us.
42.
All right.
Remember that.
So anyways, and with that, with an aye, we're adjourned.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, this means adjourned, we have 2 work sessions following, we're gonna take a quick break, and we'll be coming back with the Senior Citizen Center, and then Okay. We are here for a work session, our first of two, but our first one is going to be with request for funding from the Senior Citizen Center. We have Alice here, El Presidente.
Yeah.
So can we get you to come forward, and you want to give us your name and address, and then you can go ahead and get started.
I'm Alice Pieper, P-I-E-P-E-R. Thank you. 116 North 4th Street, apartment 401, Burlington. Thank you. I am the current president of the Senior Citizen Center. Right now, we have approximately 300 people that walk through our door. Because we're a nonprofit, we don't turn anyone away. Because we're a nonprofit, we ask for donations. Our membership fee is $2 per year. At the moment, we have 55 paying members, but 300 people plus walk through our door. We invite Hope Haven to come. They come to watch movies, they come to do yoga, they come, and we don't count them because usually the person that's with them doesn't put down the number of people that they bring. We play cards, we have books, we have puzzles, we have different games. We would like to have the center continue, but we are running out of funding. The funding that we are working off of has been from people that have passed away that have willed the money to us. Last year, my first year as president, we had a shortfall of $14,625.63. We will be running.
Can you give me that number again?
Yeah, $14,625.63. That was last year. The first year that I was president. We have been able to cut that amount by quite a bit from the year before I became president. We did away with certain things that weren't necessary. We attempted to get the electricity put on a budget, but because of the size of the building and we're a public building, they won't do that. So during the winter time, we've had our bills up above $1,000, which hurts.
When was the last time that they did an audit on that, utility or audit on that building?
I have no idea. I've only been in town a couple of years, and they stuck me as president pretty much after we got here, just because I'd had 25 years experience with nonprofits. I just have never had this portion funding as part of the things that I've had.
They stuck you all right out.
They stuck me, yes, they did. But we do advertising. We advertise in 10 area newspapers plus the radio. So that's an ongoing thing. We were in West Burlington handing out our scheduling during the 4th of July. We've handed out our scheduling to try to get more people involved. I was told before I got here, before COVID, that the building was completely full. It was to capacity, which is 325 people per event. We are open 5 days a week. Sunday and Friday, we don't have anything else going on. We can rent the building out, and it has been rented out to events. And that brings in some funding too. So at this point, anything we would appreciate. Last year, we had to purchase a refrigerator for $2,000 because ours bit the dust. We have a lot of people that donate coffee. We have coffee and cookies out when we have music, and we have that twice a week. I'm not sure, we've got a lot of things going on. We have movies, we have a pool table that's used, we have books that you can take that people have donated, we have games, we've got puzzles. We are there to play cards, minimum 2 days a week. We've got a bingo machine. We canceled our state gambling license, which was a huge expense. And then we only play bingo for a quarter.
Isn't that $200 every couple of years?
And I'm not sure what it was, because as soon as I got there, I canceled that because it was an expense we didn't need. There are other places that have bingo available. The Moose has bingo, I know, and there's a couple other places that have bingo. So we went down to having a quarter bingo, which the state doesn't care about. You know, we play 10 games, you can get up to as much as $1 a quarter.
So people pay a quarter to play bingo?
Yeah.
Quarter card?
A quarter a card, yeah. And we play 10 games. When it's done, it's done. Hope Haven comes and plays that a lot, and then we have a few members that enjoy it.
Hope Haven doesn't run that anymore.
No, Hope Haven does not. They come as our guests.
How come they don't run it anymore?
I have no idea. You have to ask Hope Haven about that. I don't know.
What about renting out the building? I
We
know you
do
guys used to
rent
do quite a bit of business doing that. Where are you at on that?
We haven't had anyone rent the building since last fall, and it's like $50 an hour. The kitchen is $25 for the day if you want to use the kitchen. But we have to wait until people call and ask for that. And that's only on a Saturday, Sunday, Saturday late, Friday and Sunday basically. Every Saturday we pay for a band to play some type of music. We do ask for a $5 cover charge. However, because we're a nonprofit, we don't stand at the door and turn someone away because they don't have $5 to play. It's all volunteer. So most Saturdays, we don't cover the cost of the band. We do have to pay the bands, they're professionals. So, Wednesday, we have music. We pay whatever comes in the door. We divide it out with the musicians, so we aren't generating funds, but we aren't losing funds either, so.
How much, you say you're advertising newspapers and radios, what's that cost you?
It's free.
Okay.
It's in the upcoming things, and the KBUR is the Burlington calendar, so that's all free.
I guess initially, we've been through this once before several years ago, you might have heard. Anyway, and so
I did.
Since we didn't give anything, we got savaged in the newspapers. Anyway, so, and I went out and I spoke to the woman that was in charge then. I don't think they did any, and I got free advertising for them from a different radio station that I'm sure would be more than happy to provide that. And then I helped them with the budget a little bit. And about 2 months later, they had another article in the paper, said how well things were going once. But as I look at this, $2 a year isn't charging anybody anything. If you've got people that are actually going in, if it was $10 a month, that's $550 a month.
I understand that.
And maybe people don't wanna pay. I'm gonna be honest with you, if people aren't willing to pay for something, I don't see where the county needs to the taxpayers need to pick it up.
You know what the reason is that people don't want to fill out that little paper? They don't want us to know how old they are, because you have to be above 55 to be a member.
I'm quite above 55, and it wouldn't bother me at all to write down 55
Well,
on it.
there are some people that will not do that.
Well-
You know, I was just told that Jim's about to turn 42 on Friday.
Yeah, he's coming up there.
And that's fine, but anybody, that if you can't write down 55, if your vanity is such That's still not a taxpayer problem.
I understand that. We're still shortfalled and we need to keep it open, I do believe. I believe it's a important part of the community. We have people that do donate quite a few things, coffee and other games and books and all kinds of things. But we still have to pay the janitor, we still have to pay the trash removal, we still have to pay the heat and light. That's a big bill. So,
Just where I'm coming from, you have not exhausted revenue possibilities, even close.
we have quite a few people that come there that are on fixed income. They are very strapped. So coming up with the $2 can be a big issue for them if
A year?
they are strapped.
$2 a year.
I understand that, but that's what was in the bylaws, that's what has been way before I got here.
I think Tom's got a good point with that. I do think now's the time for you to come up a little bit higher, even at $6 a year, that's only 50 cents a month. And
year?
I can, well, I'm just saying, they're paying $2. I'm saying, you know, if that's in the bylaws, there's just no way that's
Feasible.
Yeah,
No.
right, and even with the, and no offense, but even with the, when you're having a band and that there's nobody at the door to make sure people pay to get in, you know, every other, I know it's a tax-free, you know, or a nonprofit, but, you know, people are gonna enjoy, you know, certain things. Everybody knows that those come with a cost. And my only point is that things keep going up. I don't think that that's asking too much, you know, as a group for you guys to say, hey, we need to look at what we're charging for the yearly, and also to make sure that somebody is not just letting people walk through the doors when, to me, that's not even fair to the people that are paying, and then other people just walk through the doors. I don't think that's right, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I would just throw that out there, that you're missing some valuable income, not doing that is not being fair to the other people that are actually paying and doing those things.
Yeah, I totally agree. We'll bring that up at our next board meeting. But in the meantime, if you guys would be generous enough to donate, that's great. We will take any donation possible. The newspaper had ran one article a year ago, and we did receive some donations through the newspaper article asking for donations. So, I'll do the best I can. I've never been put in this position before, so I am totally ignorant. So I'm just trying to work my way through.
You know, here in the past, we used to support the senior citizens. And then all of a sudden, they sent us what they wanted, it went up thousands of dollars. I can't quite remember, but I think it was $14,000-15,000. You remember, Tom, what they?
Something like that.
What they requested, and at that time, we was giving $1,500. And then all of a sudden, you know, they come up with $14,000-15,000, and then we found out that they did have more money in their account than what they had, and
Oh, that's not good.
so, and it's a non-mandated thing for the county to do, and we cut a lot of our non-mandated stuff out.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that was one of them that we cut out.
Well, again, whatever.
Yeah.
I want to say this, I personally want to be a part of this. I feel like it's an asset to the community, but at the same time, I have to say that nobody likes when taxpayer money is offered up, when something's not being run completely efficiently. And I'm not blaming that on you by any means. I think you're gonna be a blessing to them, but like people getting in and out of the door, stuff like that, if there hasn't been a utility audit on that building, Alliant Energy will come and they'll do that for you for free. They'll let you know where you're losing money and what you can do to, so that you don't have those high bills in the wintertime. I thought that was done a while ago, and maybe I'm wrong about that, but I know that Alliant Energy would be glad to come and do an audit on that building. Maybe it's just some, you know, a few things that they need to change over, and you could save, you know, a couple $100 on a utility bill per month. You know, that would be quite a tremendous help.
I will do that.
I would love to see some of those things happen where there's no money that's drifting off, and I am, I may be the only one, but I am okay with I had a number written down for $1,000 for the senior citizen center.
Greatly appreciated.
That was, that's where I was on that.
Greatly appreciated. Is there any other questions I can answer?
Here, take that, but that's, you might wanna call in for free advertising too.
Oh, great.
So I just have a question, and I think the guys have already talked about it a little bit, but, you know, you got circulation of 300 a month, but only 55 members. So is a large chunk of that circulation then people that haven't even paid the $2? That's kind of what I'm hearing. And there's gonna be some doubling, you know, people that come back once, you know, once a
Yeah.
week or whatever, as part of that 300, but,
And there's
I
300
mean,
people
there's,
using it.
there's
No,
several people,
I get you.
I mean, how many people are
$6
using it that aren't part of the 55?
No, it ain't.
The people that come in, to play cards, they pay $2.
Mhm.
And the bridge players pay $2.25, and at the end, the quarters that they gather is divided with the winners. The people that play and another ones, they give $2, we don't have any money involved. The place where we end up with people coming in that maybe do not pay would be on our music days. But during, and we do not ask Hope Haven to pay.
Sure.
Some of the members that come from Hope Haven will throw in a little money in the box, but we do not ask them to pay. They bring a bus down with so many people in it, and they watch movies or they dance, one or the other. They love the music. So, and we do have quite a few movies that are okay for them to watch.
Okay. And then also, you said that last year you were down $14,000 and you've made several cuts since then.
Yes.
What's your projected shortfall this coming year?
I'm hoping it's quite a bit less. Again, we had some really high electric gas bills. And our water bills seem to double this month. And so I've gotta call the water company and see what's happening, because we check to make sure there are no leaks, so.
I'll call Alliant this afternoon.
Well, and does the city, what does the city do like with water? Do they,
We are charged for water, and we're charged for the sprinkler system. So we
I
have
don't think they're
two
getting away from that.
This is a
expenses.
city-owned building, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
but they're not getting out of the water
No.
bill.
And during the Christmas holidays, the city hooked up the Santa Claus house to our electricity too, so, and we didn't get anything for that. They had the Christmas lights for the Santa house.
Well, I'll call the Alliant Energy this afternoon and see about when the last time they did an audit on that building, because there's no way that you should be having $1,000 utility bills for, I mean, it's a big room, but goodness
It's
grief.
huge.
That's got an upstairs, doesn't it?
No, what is below us is the Flint Hill Archery, and they write a check out for $50 each month. I have never been down there. We don't have keys for that area. And I don't know if I don't know how things work. We don't get rent for that. It's because the city does own the building. A gentleman passed away, and he willed the building to the city and said that we, the Steamboat Center, could have that as long as we're in the building. It was ours to use. So we don't pay rent, thank goodness, because the rent on that building would be $30,000 a year. And we've had the furnace repaired and the air conditioning twice. They had to come back and fix those, and the city picked that up.
At one time, the city was talking about moving to the depot. Has the senior citizens considered that?
Not that I'm aware of. I haven't heard anything about it. But again, I'm only in town for a couple years, so I don't know.
You know, it seems to me like your only expenses then is your electric and your heat basically, that's your big expenses there.
And the janitor and the trash removal all
Trash
go
removal.
in, and then all of the bands that we have to pay.
The expense for one thing, what if your revenue from membership is $110 a year? And you've got 55 regular, who knows coming through, how many, hundreds of people coming through the door periodically? There's a disconnect there.
I'm just taking over from.
No,
one
no,
of
I'm
the
not,
old
I'm not blaming
things.
you, but the board needs to, I can't think of anything that costs $2 a year. And I realize everything is expensive, that cup of coffee cost me $1.70.
Oh,
No.
that's cheap.
Oh, I understand that, that's why I go to McDonald's, cause it's cheaper, but $2 a year, and you've got 55 people that voluntarily pay it. I'm guessing that not everybody is financially strapped down there.
No, we
Anyway.
have a few retired vets, veterinarians and a few other things.
And
And
I
they
realize
do-
this is not yours, this is a revenue. You have access to a lot of revenue that you aren't collecting, possible revenue, without imposing on anybody.
Oh, I wish that were, I'm really afraid if we raise anything, we're going to lose more members. I've got a few that are on just social security is basically
And if
what
there's a
they're
few people,
doing.
you're letting people in without paying. Now, if there's something you wanna do, you said we have a few people, if you wanted to do something like that. But people that can afford that can afford way more than $2 a year. That's revenue of $110 of membership revenue for something that's open, what, 5 days a week?
Yeah.
52 weeks a year?
Pretty much,
That's a,
even, the bridge players come down, even if it's a holiday, they'll come down on 4th of July, they'll come down. They will not miss their bridge a day. So we have people that open up for them.
Yeah,
So, yeah, they come.
And how many people are playing bridge?
Usually there's 6 tables set up, with 4 to a table. And they are the most affluent of the people that come down.
I suspect if you reach out to people and said, we're gonna close unless we can get more revenue, that there'll be some ideas.
Oh, I hope.
And have you?
We tried, we did a lot of suggestions for fundraisers, because we do have one fundraiser. The only trouble is, I can't get people to come and help, and I can't do it all. It just doesn't work. I can't get people to come and help me.
Who's on your board?
We have Jim Westfall, Carolyn Cloak, Don Bosch, Jeans Salisbury, Craig McCavey, Steve Tizer. I'm forgetting someone. Oh, and John Billups is also on the board. He comes when he.
Have you reached out to people also as far as, I know there's people that conservation's important to them, or animal shelter's important to them, and they make sure that they will, a certain amount of their money or whatever, to keep that going. Have you looked into that at all?
The only thing that, as far as wills go, is what was in the account when I got there.
Okay.
And we are losing that. I mean, we're using it up.
I would love to see you have conversations with John Billups and the city again. If the numbers are decreasing like that, I think maybe you'd be better well served, maybe moving to the depot where those bills are gonna be minute compared to what that other building is doing. And maybe your need could still be met right there, having your meetings at that room that they had off to the side of the depot, because that was conversations that we were having when I was at the city.
Is that, I don't know anything about it, so you'll have to educate me.
Well, it's the depot, it's off of Main Street, or it's on Main Street, but
I know where it is, but I don't know how,
Can you see
what
it
is
through
the
the wall?
process of,
I just think you need to call John Billups and say, hey, I went down to the county and Shane brought up the fact that you know, maybe this building's too big for us, or maybe we could be better off served in the depot, and that was conversation that was had. And I don't think it was the city that said no, I think it was the president that was fighting us on not wanting to move. I don't think it had anything to do with the city.
I have no idea, wasn't here, have no idea.
That-
And the person that ran it, not the one before me, but the one before Helen
Mhm.
Rawlings, she was a pretty sharp lady from what I understand, but she died during COVID. I've spoken with several people that used to go down to the center, and I said, why aren't you coming down now? And they said, I'm still afraid of COVID. So we've lost a lot of people because of the fear that they're going to catch something, and they're also 3 years older, and it's harder for them to move around, and they've gotten in the habit of staying home.
One of the churches that I pastor, a lot of people after COVID decided they weren't going to come back. They decided not to, so we, instead of cranking up the heat in the sanctuary during the wintertime, we had service in the basement, which was a lot easier to heat, and we saved tons of money. So I'm just saying, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and I really do think you need to have a conversation with John, and to bring that back up to their attention, that maybe it's time to make that move. Maybe it is.
I will do that. I will also contact our electric company too.
Please do, and you know, if you have any problems with that, you've got my number, call me, because I've got a direct line, I can make sure that they get after that right away, but that would be something that would be advantageous to you.
And I would get the attention of the board about revenue. I've never heard anything costing $2 a year.
I haven't either. I was president just with another group in Fort Madison, because I was kind of there, and my yearly dues were like $150, you know, a year. But now I'm not president of that anymore. But that was an international group, so, yeah. They fought me for a while on it, so we'll bring it back up and see what happens.
Please do, you've got my number, keep me,
I do.
keep me posted on what goes on with that.
Can I text you?
Absolutely.
That works really well, because
It works great
then
for me.
I can do that at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep.
You can text me anytime, you certainly
When
can.
you get old, you can't sleep. It just doesn't work. So, yeah, I will keep you, and any donation, we're greatly appreciated. And thank you for your time, I really appreciate that too.
Thank you.
And
Sounds like you have a thankless job.
Yeah, I've had a few thank yous.
Yeah.
You know how it goes.
Maybe they'll thank you more after you get this move made, but
Oh,
anyways.
I hope. So, yeah, we could actually do with a smaller area, we really could. Because there's a lot of areas that we don't use that we're heating. And I'm sure the city would appreciate renting that building out, because that's a nice building.
Yeah.
And it's got a new roof, the roof was put on like
Not too long ago, just-
3 years ago,
Yeah.
before I got there. And then they just fixed the heating and the air conditioning. The air conditioner needed 2 new condensers and something about one of the fans too, so. Yeah, anybody has any ideas on fundraisers that doesn't take a lot of people to do?
They need to change that too. Ask them how much they like having that facility.
The problem is a lot of our people are in walkers and wheelchairs and they just can't move, so.
But they aren't all that way.
Well, I'll tell you, in the library there in Danville, and we got, I think next week we're getting that rail car's coming in, but, there's a lot of people on the library board, cause the Danville station's intertwined with the library board, and the average age in that board has gotta be 80. I mean, there's members of that board that are well in their 90s, and they raise money, like, I mean, they can get money. And, so there's ways. I bet if you go to that bridge club and say, hey, we need a committee to help with fundraising, and the board gets active and comes up, and Phillips knows, I mean, he raised funds for all kinds of stuff. But if you try to get them going, I think you'd be happily surprised, and I think that's what the guys are saying. You know, they're saying, hey, we don't wanna just give you a fish, we wanna, you guys should be able to fish. I think that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, and you told the board that that's where they're at, and,
Again, we've got retired vets there, we've got people that were accountants, we've got a lot of people.
yeah, you got a lot of talent there.
There, we've got a bunch of school teachers, we've got all kinds of things.
Mhm.
But again, and we do have some above 80-year-old people that are active and they help.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that don't. Well, that's the way it is with every group. You have 10% that helps and the rest are just there to warm a seat. So.
Make sure they know that if
That
things
seat
don't change, that seat will
That
be
seat
there.
costs money.
And please don't take anything I've said personally.
Believe me, I don't.
Okay.
I will not come to your house and short sheet your bed or anything.
I like her more already.
I was a professional housekeeper, a licensed professional housekeeper for 35 years, and I told my clients, I said, any money that's in the washer is mine, and I know which side of the bed you sleep on. I have thistles. Yeah, so, yeah, I really do appreciate it, and,
Thanks for taking the time to come down.
well, thank you, we're very grateful, and, have a great day, guys, and again,
too.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Okay, we're gonna take a quick break before we,
Yep, I'm gonna hold him.
okay.
I'm gonna have to apologize because I'm gonna have to go.
What?
I'm gonna have to go
We'll
to
get the
another
hell out of
meeting.
here then.
Yes. Jared will take care of you guys. I'm gonna try and listen in, and if I hear something.
Just kidding, you know that.
We're back for our work session with the SEIRPC requested, no, that's for solar energy ordinance. And we have Jared Lasser, go ahead and get started.
Yep, so the staff report here basically explains where we're at in the process. So the last work session was in May when we discussed the wind ordinance. There've been several of those, and we had decided at the time to proceed with going through the process for having the public hearings and vote on the wind ordinance, and then we would resume have at least one work session on the solar ordinance before doing that one separately, and that's where we're at this point, since the solar or the wind ordinance was adopted last month. So we're basically picking up where we left off on that. The latest version, the printout I handed out yesterday when I was refreshing myself on this, since it had been a while since we discussed the solar ordinance, I decided to highlight everything that's in red text on there is something that is specific to solar, and everything that's in black is basically the same between both ordinances, the wind and solar. Basically, sometimes it's switch the phrase between SFES and CWECS for which type of facility, but it's the same principle in place in both. So that all of that is the black text, which is essentially the same in each one, which it's supposed to be consistent that way. So that's just a way of making sure that if you have any concerns about anything in there, we're looking at the red text for stuff that's specific to solar.
Okay, the proposed amendments are different than what you emailed.
I was getting to that. So as I was reviewing that yesterday, and I know this tends to be the way it goes with these sometimes so I noticed the language we had defined the term participating property in contrast to non-participating. And participating basically being that's the property where the wind or solar farm is located. The challenge in addressing that is you're dealing with large acreages in rural areas, and a lot of times it's a property where the same owner owns several 40-acre pieces, but they're all part of the same legal description, the same deed, and they could all be sold together as one piece all at once. So trying to make sure, we were trying to balance two separate things. One being the land on which is because the participating properties we have a lower setback requirement than we do for non-participating.
Let me proceed not to mix me up anymore.
Okay.
So where you've got this map, the definition of participating property, the checkerboard one is the way the existing wind ordinance reads.
Right. So the issue, so basically in each one of those images there, all of those squares represent 40 acres. This is just a hypothetical property.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just saying that. So the one where they're all yellow, that's the revised definition.
Yeah. Yep.
So you want to revise the definition on the wind ordinance?
Yeah. Well, and then that could be done if you agree on that. We can do that simultaneously with the solar, and then the same language would be in the solar.
But one thing while we're talking about that, there's one thing I wouldn't mind in the wind ordinance. It doesn't change anything, but you have in the definition of abandonment that anytime the installation or any portion thereof is in the definition of abandonment. But if you go back deeper in that ordinance where it talks about abandonment, it says anytime the installation. I would like to see that match the on page 29.
There isn't 29 pages. It's 20 pages.
We only got 20 pages.
Oh, 20 pages.
Okay.
Well, I don't have glasses.
Well, determination of
29,
abandonment is on the
close
last
enough.
page, so I assume that's where you're at.
Anyway, well, if you go here to the page, what is it, page 3, where you define the terms, it says the state in which a solar farm energy system, which would be wind and the other, or portion thereof, has ceased to produce energy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you go to page 20, it says, where it says determination of abandonment, it says any installation that has not been in operation
Okay.
for a period. In other words, to add that.
Okay, so
portion
just
thereof.
add or
So
portion
it
there.
doesn't change it. All that does is so that if you're ever in court someday, somewhere it's gonna say, it says here this here, and it says this here, it
Okay.
doesn't include that whole portion. So if we're gonna amend that wind ordinance,
Yeah.
I want that or portion thereof stuck in on the last page on both of them.
Oh,
To
yeah,
match-
that's-
To match, and I've been told that the definition would be the ruling definition. But I'll be a lot happier. if it
Okay,
says it-
yeah, and
it says-
if we're
okay.
doing that already and it's
Okay.
just one little short passage, I definitely don't see the harm in that.
Okay, and so the revised definition, and so you're gonna make that in both of them, a participating property.
So as I was saying at the start, so initially we were trying to address two separate factors in terms of what's a participating and not. One is if there's a house on it, what does the minimum setback need to be, which of course could be waived. But I'm just showing in this example, if there's one of those parcels has a house but not a wind turbine, but there's a turbine on the adjoining parcel, that house parcel would be considered non-participating and therefore would require a larger setback. And so under the revised definition, anything that's within that common property.
And it's all the same owner.
Yes, yes.
I think we're better if we say platted parcel. So keep the current language, but change tax parcel to platted parcel. And then this is why. You make a good point that there's several farm properties that are contiguously owned, yet we arbitrarily chop them up into different taxing parcels. Yet if that farmer wanted to sell it in more than two pieces, we're gonna say, oh, no, contraire monfrere, you need to come up with you need to plat that out and come up with a subdivision plan and go all the way through that, right?
There's gotta be a dumbass on every board, and I'm in.
Sure.
So, there's a.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, was that?
The dumbass finally admitted it. Okay, so on the top one, you've got the checkerboard.
Yeah.
That would need to be platted different. Explain that to
So
me.
what most of these farms are gonna be, is you might have a farmer that owns 200 acres, right?
Hmm?
Yeah, it's all one piece, yet for tax purposes, we're gonna break that 200 acres down to several different numbers. And you go to the GIS website, you look, there'll be probably about 16 different
Yeah.
square, well, not really squares, they're all rectangles.
Parcels.
Rectangles, right? But
Sections or squares, if that's.
Sections, yeah.
Townships.
Sometimes they're not when it's not the entirety, where the dividing line is in the middle of a section, they'll have more of a rectangular shape.
Aliquot
One
points.
owner on either top side.
Any size.
Yep,
yeah,
yep.
so when we say taxing parcels, yeah, we are producing this kind of arbitrary thing. But when we say platted parcels, that means it's been subdivided at some point, it's platted out as separate parcels. So that way, if it's already platted out separately, then that restriction protects the next buyer. If it's not already platted out separately, and somebody wants to try to separate it off, assuming it's not the second cut, but the third or fourth cut, then we're gonna have to have them subdivide their entire property, right?
I'm not sure why subdivision would factor into this, because we're really just talking about the public land survey and how that was all established, and it's only really applicable at the time the wind farm is being established. So if they subdivide it later, then everything is already in place at that time. So I'm not sure what.
You guys are assuming this is going on a 40-acre piece, or you are at least. I can't speak. I'm still figuring out, Trent. But you're assuming this is going on 40 acres of ground. Somebody that owns 200 acres and they own it all in 40s or whatever, like a gable line, which is where the two
Right,
end monitoring things are going up. But whatever language we come up with needs to apply to that, or whether it's some guy that's got a 15 shape octagonal something or other that meets the setbacks and can slap up a wind thing. And I'm not gonna say I can fully follow exactly where you're at, I'm kind of with Tom on this. So I need to wrap my head around it, but
Okay.
the language needs to apply as best as possible. Or you need two separate descriptions, one if it's still aliquot parts, kind of the original 40s, because you're right, they are the tax system splits them up. If you own, a big acreage, odds are is you're probably taxed by 40s, all the way through it. And that is something that's just the way the tax system's set up for property taxes.
Yeah, maybe using the term aliquot part in there and.
Well, I don't know, I'm just saying, either this needs to be two segments, cause it's entirely possible somebody's gonna put a wind farm up on something that is not owned by 40s. That has already been split up, whether it was now or 40 years ago. And so, platted may not apply to certain things, and aliquot parts may not apply to certain things. So I feel like this needs some language that either two different sections, like a situation if it's on an existing previously platted parcel of land in Des Moines County, whatever, or aliquot parts, or maybe there's language that can work on both. I don't think I quite grasp it well enough to be able to weigh in on what my opinion is, but you got two situations as far as land, they could both have wind show up. Or solar, I should say.
Right.
How's this, if you're taxed for the improvements, which would be the wind turbines, so are they taxed like the top one, or are they taxed like the bottom one? I mean, it's just the parcel that turbine's on, is that?
Well,
It's gonna be taxed like the top one, if in that situation, every one of those squares is a 40, that's taxed as a 40.
Well,
the tax system.
But what happens once we go to put wind on is then we have these one of two, and we've adopted the one where they pay, the percent, right, every the 5% every or whatever. Where it works up to 5%, and they pay 5% of the value every year. So that tax parcel that's in question, it's no longer taxed it's taxed as a power generating unit. And so the board had choices too, so they had.
The assessor's board, or the board of supervisors.
Board of supervisors had a option to have either set it up so where they bill based on production, and they're taxed based on production per unit of kilowatt hour, or they can have it taxed based on the life cycle. There's a formula, and then that works like 1%, 2%, up to 5%, and 5% of that. So they've picked the 5% method, so that way we're not determined on what they produce or not.
But that's the tax on the wind part of it. There's still a 40-acre piece there that is still intact as far as an aliquot part. That is still taxed as farmland to some extent in the taxing system.
I would think so.
So that's what I was, Tom asked how this would be taxed. If there was no wind at all, it'd be taxed by the 40s in this picture. And then the wind is an additional tax in the method you're talking about on top of the 40. My guess is that even, I don't know if the wind companies come in and actually purchase, or if they just buy an easement. I'm assuming it's an easement, but, or solar, either way, I guess. I know solar is easement, they're just buying easement on the ground.
I think it's all easement.
So where I'm going with that is you still got, taxable ag, and you got a taxable energy production, on that piece of ground.
Okay.
And there is no subdivision done, I'm assuming, because it's just easements, although I guess I'm not sure how we will handle that in our county.
But, and maybe I think definitionally, when I say platted parcel, and maybe I'm wrong here, I'd have to look that up to double check. But I'm thinking, if a farmer has 200 or 300 contiguous acres, and it's not separately platted, then that's platted as one thing, and when it goes to be sold, it's gonna be one legal description.
No.
No, I think they're
No,
all.
very rarely. It's described by aliquot parts, and you'll read the deed, sorry, Tom, I.
No, you're right, go ahead.
When you read the deed, it's described by aliquot parts. It'll be the northeast or the northwest of section whatever. It'll be, depending on how small the parts are, and this is, I mean, attorneys forever have used aliquot parts
Yeah,
to
ways and means
sell off, farmland. And that's where the old 40 system comes from, but no, it will be in one deed. There's a possibility it will all be in one deed, but within that deed, there will be
Aliquot parts.
many aliquot parts. What it'll be is it'll be as big as they can make for that area. So maybe there's a 40 over here, but there's 80 over here. So maybe this 80 is described as the east half of the northeast quarter of whatever, whereas that 40 is gonna be described to a smaller aliquot part because it can't be combined with anything else around it. So there will be multiple descriptions within one. In the tax system, however, they're still all gonna show up at 40s. They all break, if it's a true aliquot part dynamic, they're all 40s. I mean, you can get smaller in aliquot parts, you can go down to the east half or the west half, I mean, you can keep going for quite a while. I mean, there is no, aliquot parts is just a broad description, it's not
Right.
just the 40. It's just the way the original land system's laid out.
And just to be clear, in the example I used, they were all 40s, but
Sure,
conceivably, one of these could be split irregularly, could have been subdivided at some point, but it's how the land was swapped between neighboring owners, but.
Well, I feel like we're getting almost, I don't wanna see too far into the weeds, cause this all needs to be
Yeah.
thought about, but you have to envision, there are a million different possibilities here.
Right.
If I think of just where I live and my farm, okay, and what I will own entirely eventually, there's 2 parcels subdivided, or not subdivided, but surveyed off of the ground that I farm. One of those is owned by me directly and one by my family farm, the business.
Right.
Okay, which is pretty common these days.
Mhm.
If you ever did solar, let's use solar as an example, and I wanted to, and I control all that, I could run that solar straight across from right through my subdivision, right through my lot, which is contiguous with all the ground surrounding it. And because I own or control everything, that's probably what I would be as a landowner looking at, because that's the way I would wanna do it. So we need to address the
this is
setback
at
side
least-
of it,
least
but it's gonna be
restrictive.
hard to come up with language to
Right.
try to fit every scenario possible, because there's gonna be a lot of those.
I know, that's where we're trying to balance all that, and I think the current definition, because at one point we had talked specifically about the fee structure for a wind farm, and thinking it didn't make sense to include acreage that did not have any turbines on it. But in the grand scheme of things, what I was getting at was, when we had the permit for those, the Met towers, that got me on a whole thing where I noticed the internal GIS website includes, all the leases that have been already signed for wind farms, and again, a lot of that is the Gableline family. And in a lot of cases, they have adjoining pieces that one is under Gableline Trucking, the other one's under Southeast Iowa Corp, but they're all contiguous, but they're each under their own lease to cover each one, because they have to have all of those different ownership, the names all accommodated in there. So I imagine there will be a number of situations like that where there's participating properties adjacent to one another that may be affiliated with one another, but they're under different names, but it would all be covered by that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that family alone has somewhere between 5 and 10 different companies that they have land.
Right.
So I suppose, and as presented, that's probably the least restrictive, if you just go by tax parcels.
Right.
And then that gives them the 1,800, so that gives them the most options, right?
Yeah, because the issue being, if we kept the existing definition, conceivably, there could be a number of instances where we'd have to get a waiver from them on the setbacks to be, if they agreed on it being closer, whereas if we didn't do that, we'd have the 1,000 or 2 times the height. That way there'd be a number of these that wouldn't require that extra paperwork to be associated with it. So it was essentially just an oversight in terms of how that would have impacted that side of the equation, as opposed to the fee, calculation of the fee for the wind farm or solar.
So it's in the best interest of that property owner to make the decision that's gonna maximize the value of that property.
Mhm.
So I think if we go with the least restrictive, it doesn't hurt us, doesn't hurt the citizens, really, truly, if you think about it. Cause they could look at their land, like you're saying, it's not just 40s, there's a creek that runs through it, and there's a hilltop here, and there's, you know, the barn that's 200 years old that nobody's gonna tear down. And there's all these other considerations that we don't know. So I think if we go with the least restrictive, which is what you have, that's good to go.
I think least restrictive is generally on property rights, the board's opinion. What they want to do is make sure that the taxpayers are protected in the long term from the abandonment. Making sure setbacks are met to, certainly to people that aren't involved with it. And as long as those things still apply, if the Gable lines, or if you throw out the Carter Farming, whatever, wanna throw 1,000 things in and they can meet the requirements and the board and the bond's still there and all that, in general, the board's been erred towards least restrictive as far as property rights.
So apart from that, essentially, we just want to see if you have any thoughts on any of the other elements of this ordinance, anything you want to discuss now, because if not, I think we're in a good spot to.
I do.
Yeah.
And not very much, and you've already addressed, I think, most of them. If you go to page 7, we've got maintenance of soil health. And well, a little bit, I know, I was online looking at different things, and they said, those solar panels have potentially toxic heavy metals and silicone byproducts are used in those. Damaged units or time may release contaminants into the environment. So anyway, it says to require regular soil samples to regularly, soil samples to regularly monitor for potential contaminants. Information concerning potential contaminants is outlined in the EPA website. Ecological soil screening and metal contaminants. And I would like to see in there that rather than just when you're done, if it's sat there for 20 years or 25 years, and then you check if there would be regular soil sampling to know, so that you know that there's something going on.
Okay.
Or something that's happened, whether it's age deterioration or.
Okay. Yeah, it's something we can look into.
Then, if we go to 8, you've got a lighting and reflection, and down there it says that it should be designed and positioned in such a manner as to prevent reflective glare toward building roadways, airport runways. Establishment of solar farms has been noted as a potential hazard for airports and air traffic controllers. Generally, the requirements of notification are not necessary for solar panels established more than 5 nautical miles from an airport. And I don't think I'll just read it. According to their website, the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, essentially has 2 objectives as follows. No potential for glint or glare in the existing or planned air traffic control tower cab, and no potential for glare or low potential for after image along the final approach path for any existing landing threshold or future landing thresholds, including any planned interim phases of the landing thresholds as shown on the current FAA approved airport layout, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, down there it says, it's advisable to discuss potential solar farm issues with the FAA's local airport district office for civilian airports. And then, the FAA, there's an FAA website that says to go here that I'd be happy to email that to you.
Okay.
Rather than try to, so, I think that's just something we need to, so that the airport would be involved up front.
Just to clarify, just to mention the FAA may have some authority in this and to ensure that they're.
Well, I think they probably do have authority, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, I'd read this, so I see you got here with reflective glare, and maybe this takes care of it, I'm just saying, I went online, just
Okay.
looking for stuff, and I don't think it's probably a huge difference. from
Okay,
what we
but
have.
if we just had like a cross-reference to what.
To FAA requirements?
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, I think I would mention in there so people know that, or whatever, that it looks 5 nautical miles. I believe a nautical mile's about 800 feet longer than a standard mile, 6,000 and something. Anyway, it wouldn't hurt just to look at the FAA website.
Okay.
And maybe you just need to reference that in
Sure,
there.
sure.
Wonder how the hospitals did with on their airport.
The helipad, you mean?
No, they've got the solar out there.
Uh-huh.
Did you design that for them, for the city of Burlington? When they put their solar up for the hospital and that?
What about it?
Well, what was their criteria, is what I'm asking you.
I'm not familiar with how they did that.
Okay, I thought maybe regional planning got involved with that.
Not that I'm aware.
And then yours out there, that's within their airport distance.
And I don't know, I just want it mentioned in there,
Yeah.
for maybe there's a size requirement or whatever, just so that it's
Well, I know
in there.
we had the separate ordinance we developed for the airport height distance. I know
Yeah.
I think the hospital may be at the outer perimeter of that, but the regional planning is outside of that immediate zone. I think it's.
We've had some pretty good, I mean, they're not big ones go up, in the county where individuals done them, like Beck's hog farm out there.
But is this a two-part system though, where they still have to get licensure from the state as well?
For operating a solar farm?
Yeah.
I believe so. I know that Lee County doesn't have its own local ordinance for these, but they are Alliant Energy planning to develop one of those, and it went through the utilities board, so I know that there's gonna be something like that for a large commercial facility like this as well.
And when we're started this, I know I attended like some CEs that the state was putting on by the utility board and some AG and some. And that was really the complaint that counties had, was that if they didn't have anything in place, the utility companies would go to the state utility board, get approval, and they'd come into the counties with these huge plans already approved and just going like gangbusters, and the county just had they're just blindsided, had no idea, no say, no input, they were just out. So I think when we get into these higher level things, like the FAA, I think we can cross-reference, that's good, but I think that's a lot of what is being looked at by the state energy board when they're looking at them. I think they're making sure that it meets all federal requirements.
Okay, next, I'm just checking off things here. So, my next is if you go to 10, paragraph 4, where it mentions vegetation, planting, and soil maintenance. Then you turn to the next page on 11, stormwater management plan. I think it doesn't matter if you're gonna build something, you need an engineer to come up with so there's a runoff problem here. What do we need to abate that? Do we need a certain type of vegetation? Do we need a retention pond? I guess that's it, it's something there to protect adjoining properties from any stormwater runoff. At least that's one of my questions. And finally, and you addressed that too, is in 14, it says an emergency response plan. I guess I'd like to see where they're gonna do this, because anytime we have a fireworks permit, they have to have a plan that's approved by the local fire marshal,
yep.
either the township or the city or whatever. I think when they're gonna have something like that, they sit down with the fire marshal and said, okay, this is where we have electrical lines, this is where we have this or that, you know, and, so we have some local input in that.
So what do you?
Well, I want them to get the blessing before that map or whatever, you know, where they locate these.
Okay.
Or some sort of a plan that's approved by the local fire marshal.
Okay. So just want clarification in there that explains.
Well, yeah, it says you need an emergency response plan.
And that would apply to, that would need to apply to wind too.
Well, yeah,
yeah.
it would come to think of it anyway. And then just a copy of the emergency response plan shall be replied to Des Moines County Emergency Management. I'd like to have some input on that.
Okay.
Not me necessarily, but I certainly would want the fire marshal and
I would say it needs to be supplied to the local fire department and emergency management, because I guess, maybe off the record to be politically correct, but I think occasionally there's a disconnect between the emergency management and the local fire, like the departments, especially the volunteer stuff. So I think it probably needs to be provided to both sides, just to make it clean.
or require approval by both, rather than just.
Approval and provided, yeah.
Provided, because here it just says supplied.
Yeah, I would agree, approved.
Okay.
I would like to have that approved by,
We make them approve the roads in a subdivision, I'm not sure why we wouldn't have them approve being able to handle a fire at one of these.
exactly,
And it could be, if you look at your little map on the back, it could be that the fire chief comes in and says, hey, you wanna put this windmill here, but if you put it over here and over here, you get the same number of windmills in, and oh, by the way, we have a pond right here that we can, you know, get water out of in case of a fire, or even better, a fire hydrant, but more likely a pond, you know. They're gonna have a different set of eyes, I mean, you're
Yeah.
right, they look at it from a whole different.
those
set
are
of
eyes that we want on it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we can make that change.
Okay, and I don't think any of those are a huge ask.
So back to the stormwater, and, what was the soil vegetation planting, what was your specific?
Well,
comment
there
on that?
is I want some sort of a plan, approved by an engineer, you know, just if
So just
if
our,
Walmart's
just
gonna
our,
put on an addition, they're gonna have to get a plan and say, okay, we're gonna have so much water runoff here.
so
This
just
is our
some
plan.
quality control there, that, cause right now it says a stormwater management plan, but to clarify that needs to be submitted by a professional engineer.
Well, a professional engineer, or I would like to have local input on that from a local engineer. Does that make sense, Brian?
Well, I'm assuming they've got to provide a packet to the county for approval. I mean, we're going through this ordinance, but at some point the county's approving something.
Yeah.
And I would think, I mean, we've talked about, I think at one time we talked about making sure plans were signed by an engineer. And the supporting documentation would be the soil prevention plan, so the erosion prevention plan.
Right.
And also the general, how you're gonna leave the site kind of thing, kind of like you're referring to. And I would think all that would be overseen by and approved by the same consulting firm engineer that's
Right.
doing that. And I would think, yeah, it doesn't hurt, they need to do it. It's probably more, that dynamic is probably a little more relevant to the solar side than it is to the wind side, because the wind's small pieces that
Yeah,
are
that's,
just.
that's why it's unique to this ordinance, cause it's
But
denser.
I would think that'd all be part of any packet of stuff they'd submit to the county.
Right.
I know I have to submit for any project, I mean, that's all gonna be approved up front before we can do the project.
Right, and then again, there is a passage earlier about, and actually this kind of gets to the FAA thing as well, about I mean, we can still cite it somewhere, but it says documentation of any applicable permits by other agencies, and in this specific ordinance, we included a passage referencing that's the SWIP thing, the MPDES, permit for stormwater control during the construction phase. So that addresses it specifically at the construction phase, but also you've got the management plan, which specifically addresses, because it says during and after construction, so that's not just immediate, but that's once it's actually in operation.
But should that read documentation of any and all applicable permits issued by other permitting agencies at the federal, state, or, okay. I was gonna say federal, state, and local level, but whatever.
Throw in local, works for me.
I would just take and though instead of or.
Yeah.
But-
It's up for interpretation.
But I'm not a lawyer.
Obviously, we can't override anything. If the federal says that it's supposed to be that, we can't make it any more,
Less restrictive.
less restrictive. We still have local control after a fashion. Anyway, anyway, those are just the things I went through there, just that I wanted to make sure we're covered there. And like I said, when you amend that other one, I want that one portion there I'll put in on the last page.
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. Any other comments specific to the solar regarding what we have in the draft ordinance?
Colin's got one on.
I got some for you.
Okay.
What is kind of the legal description difference between a solar farm and a regular installation?
Okay, so in the definitions section, it's similar for wind, how we were making sure that we clearly define what requires, what this ordinance has the authority over and what it does not. And so, if we go to solar energy system, that's the broad term that applies to pretty much any solar installation. And so the SFES versus PSES, that's a distinction there. And essentially by defining it that way, the SFES is really the only one that this ordinance has any authority over. So it has to be basically a commercial scale operation, not just an individual property owner that puts one up on, they have some extra space, so they put up a couple of panels, or they put it on the roof.
It's not our intent to tell
Right,
some
right.
farmer that he can't put out in the front, the lot next to his house.
Sure. It's really dealing with that large scale thing where it's gonna have a noticeable impact. You drive by it, it's covers a whole field, or there's a couple of areas nearby, and also that's gonna have a lot of impact in terms of the construction, bringing in the equipment and everything. So that's the distinction there, all right?
I guess what I consider a large physical footprint and what somebody else could consider a large physical footprint, I think could be two different things.
Okay.
And the other caveat to that I was gonna ask you about is, in terms of solar tiles, would this
Solar
fall
what?
under solar tiles?
What do you mean solar tiles?
Solar tiles is like basically roof shingling tiles you can put
Oh,
on your roof.
oh, sure. Well, again, so another key distinction there with solar farm energy system is that it's intended to be distributed to the electrical power grid for use by the public at large, whereas the PSES is, it's specifically for that subject property or adjoining, and there's the caveat that it could be, excess energy could be distributed to the power grid, but as designed, it's intended specifically for on-site. So that's another key distinction, is that the solar farm energy system is a commercial scale, intended primarily for distribution of the power grid and not for on-site.
So a lot of these new, because I've done a lot of reading into this, because I've actually considered quite a bit at my house, but the solar tiles, the larger ones, do really well, especially in the summer months, but a lot of those installations, you pretty much never have a bill. You're always selling and getting credits back from your local utility provider.
Okay.
So would that still be considered a PSES in your mind? Even though you don't, you're basically getting credit back, and you're not really having a bill from the utility company.
Well, ultimately, the intention for installing those is to serve that particular property. So again, if there is extra energy, regardless of how that's being compensated, it's just showing that, hey, that definition specifies that, hey, some of that energy could be distributed to the power grid, but ultimately the purpose of that is to serve that individual property.
I think Colin's hitting a good mark though to say, hey, if we have a square footage or acreage that we wanna say meets wind farm, anything less than that isn't, I think that's good, because one of the things the guys were asking when I was walking in, they're like, hey, solar's up, or we started talking about that. And they mentioned down in Montrose, down by the plant there, they're putting in all these solar farms. So they're putting in a bunch of solar farms to run that plant, and as described right there, maybe all of that energy is gonna go towards that one facility, but that industrial facility could then facilitate, 40, 50, hundreds of acres of solar to run that one industrial plant. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So, and you're right, you might have a homeowner who's really just trying to put it on shingles on their roof, or a farmer who's just trying to put shingles on their barn, because why not? And frankly, from the policy standpoint, a lot of the times, the individual homeowner, the individual farmer saying, hey, let's throw up a little bit of solar here, that's probably the best use of solar that's available, because it's there, the resource is there, the sun's in the south, it's coming down. We're not trying to get it and pump it back into the grid. If it happens, that's a good, happy consequence, but that's not their intent. So, but it's hard to say if we're saying larger, or if we say more than 5 acres, or more than 500 acres is a farm. I don't know what that number is. But if we come to a number, or a square footage, or an acreage, it's a lot easier for me to go to a judge and say, Your Honor, it says 5 acres and it's 6 acres. Where if I'm arguing over what's big and what's not big,
Okay. We can look into checking with other ordinances and how other communities have established that distinction, and maybe there's a way to specify that in there in terms of the acreage. So we can look into that. I think that would help.
I think the answer to your first question, Colin, is that I don't think there's any intention in this, that if you put it in, or anybody else puts it in and sells it back, which I have a friend that does the same thing, that this would be govern them.
And not necessarily just my worry, but maybe somebody else, if they plan to put a pretty decent sized solar array on their roof, either with solar tiles or whatever, I don't want a neighbor saying, hey, that's against the ordinance because that's a large footprint or whatever.
We could even specify that the roof ones don't even count if it's, because it's,
okay.
Yeah, well, no, we don't, but we could if that could help.
I like that, it needs to be clear.
And then the height requirement on here as well, it references something with the SFES, but like it kind of rolls back to what I was saying before in terms of what's considered a large. And I don't know, it might down the road turn into a tit for tat with a neighbor saying, well, that's a large array, and well, I don't think it's a large array.
Anything that can turn into a tit for tat.
Will.
Well,
I had a couple other questions I was gonna pick on you for too, Jared, if that's all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think the battery energy storage system is really very well refined or defined, unless I'm just not seeing it. Because I just kind of read over this real quick here right before the work session. But you had standards in here, and I agree with some of them in terms of distance to other buildings and that. But what if someone wants to put like a power wall inside their home to take whatever energy they have and put it into a battery storage system inside their home? And basically, for the way that works is you can either, a couple different ways, you can use like a clean energy source, whether that's wind or solar, to put power into one of these large batteries in your home and just siphon off of it, in case of it's cloudy for a couple days, you can just siphon off of that. Or be off-peak times for utility company, you can dump into that array to save a little money doing that. And then if there's an outage or power goes out or whatever, you're good for a few days until the power comes back on. But I worry a little bit about the description on that, because if somebody wants to put something like that inside their home, then obviously you
Again,
can.
that's another one we could provide extra clarification that that's specifically for a solar farm system and
And then
not to private use.
Technically, a battery energy storage system, I mean, electric car is a battery energy storage system, because newer cars are being designed so that, you have an electric vehicle, but you can plug an electric vehicle into your home to actually use as a power wall or a battery backup for your home.
And not
So-
only designed, but advertised as
Yeah.
such.
So if I buy an electric car, you know, I power it or whatever, and then the power goes out in my neighborhood, I can run off my car outside. And the amount of power and battery storage that can be in that car, I can run for a week or more, being off the grid, just off of that battery.
Yeah, so yeah, that's a good point. We can definitely make clarification to what we're specifically referring to here, because again, that's another one where it's similar to the Met towers for the wind ordinance. This would apply to both in this case, but it's one of those things where some of the early ordinances that were adopted to regulate these types of energy systems didn't have any stipulations in place for those battery storage systems. Those are becoming more common now, so that's why we felt it was a good idea to include that in there, because conceivably one of these would include one of those installations, and if there's nothing in there to regulate where those are located, then they could conceivably go right next to an adjoining property and not be covered by the setback requirements that are specific to the panels or the turbines themselves.
I'm willing to bet, honestly, in the next 15 to 20 years, majority of all new homes are probably gonna have some form of that built into the home.
Okay.
Where they have a battery system, you know, because there's just so many benefits to it.
Okay, so we can clarify that for sure.
I had one other question for you, and I should have wrote it down, but now, of course, I can't remember.
Jeez, Colin, you're gonna talk all day.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to take up much.
Hey, man,
Well,
get it
that's
out.
fine, thank you.
Yeah, get it out, dude.
Alright, I'm done picking on you for now.
If you think it's something,
I was just messing with you, man. If you got some
Colin, if that question occurs to you, email Jared and the board
Okay,
with what that is.
I appreciate it.
Any other comments specific to solar ordinance?
I'm gonna go back to page 11, number 11, kind of back to what Tom was talking about earlier, about the stormwater management plan. I think we do need something, I think earlier Tom was talking about maybe number 9A about the NPDES plan. That doesn't concern me a whole lot, because that's gotta be approved by the DNR. So if the DNR's willing to approve it, then we're probably gonna be satisfied with that. However, on that stormwater management plan, I think that needs to say something in there about being an engineer signed or engineer approved, because that's not running through somewhere else that I can see. They're just providing it to us.
Yeah, for the long-term maintenance
Yeah,
as opposed to the
But
initial,
I think we should have something in that
Okay.
paragraph that it's gotta be an engineer approved or engineer signed. And we don't have that in that paragraph right
Okay.
now, so I think that would, make sure that whoever the overseeing engineer is on the overall project has to put his name with that also.
Yep, that makes sense.
Engineer design by Brian Carter.
All right, so if you don't have any other questions, next steps, do we wanna hold one more work session just to iron out this stuff, or to review the latest draft, or do you wanna just?
I'm cool with it.
Well, I don't know, I guess what I was saying is if nobody, and if Colin would send that, if that question occurs to you, you notice later today or tomorrow, something like that, email it all to us. You can incorporate, this is just my idea, incorporate that into the new draft, and we could all look at it on, if you email it to us.
So basically,
Maybe-
make the edits, and then send you a copy, and then you guys can determine whether.
Whether we need a work
Okay,
session
yeah,
or
that
not.
sounds like a good idea, yeah, and then if not, we can just proceed to the, yeah.
And email it to Brian's, that's.
Yes,
That's
that's how we've been doing it. We keep it all in the
That's just
loop.
saving a work session if we can.
Yeah, that'd be great, yeah, we can do that, and just, as time permits, we can address these and let you know, so.
I don't want you to think we're not wanting to spend the time with you.
Oh, no, whatever you think makes sense, handle this the most efficient way,
And we
so.
appreciate the hard work that you guys
Yep.
put in on this too. You wanna heck of a
Thank
job.
you.
Anyway, and I like it, I didn't see it till today, but the changing the stuff in the red, cause the one I got in the email the other day doesn't have the
Yeah, I just thought of that yesterday, like, oh, maybe I don't wanna be.
So I'm sure I missed some of this, matter of fact, I'm positive as I look at it, but yeah, send that, and some of that stuff we might even be able to just do online. You know, I said, just change a word or two or something
Sure,
over there, you know,
sure.
without having to have a whole nother word.
Right,
there.
right,
But-
yeah, that's fine, that's
but yeah,
fine.
that works for me.
Everybody satisfied?
Thanks, Jared.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Jared.
Okay, good deal.
Thanks, Trent.
Okay, see you.
Thank you, everybody, yeah, very good, very good.